today is 12 January 2026. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I guess the first order of business, right, Chris, is to have an election?
Yes.
Okay, so we have some new members, so new permanent members, Nigel and Cindy. Cal, you've already been on, right? So, and then we have new alternates, so it's Tom and Louis and Maurice. I think that's it. Okay, so the first order of business for today is to elect a chair for this session or this season of whatever it is of the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we can take, I guess, someone can make a motion. Yes, no?
I'll move to reappoint you as
Okay.
chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, can we have a vote on that? All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Do we
alternates
do
are
we
not
vote?
voting in.
No, that's right, we have, right,
Yep.
right. So we have, okay, so we have that covered. Great, thank you, let's continue. So the first appeal, actually, the only appeal we're hearing today is what's that? All right, from Green Skies Clean Energy LLC. Yeah. So if you would identify yourself and sign in, and then make your presentation.
You don't have to turn.
Dennis Hicks, Green Skies Clean Energy, at address 127 Washington Ave. Sorry, yeah, 127 Washington Ave, North Haven, Connecticut, 06473. Myself, Ryan Linares from our business development team, and Michael Gagnon from SLR, our engineering partners, were part of an RFP process from the town of Woodbridge, who were seeking a partner to erect a solar array atop their closing cap landfill on the Acorn Hill Road Extended, right next to the transfer station and the Bethwoods ball fields. The project, as designed and proposed here, is a 999 kilowatt solar array that would sit on ballasted blocks atop the landfill, as we are not allowed to pierce the landfill cap. The ballast blocks would be the mounting structure, and it would be a fixed tilt array for the entirety of the project, or the duration of the project. The project was selected through the Connecticut non-residential renewable energy solutions in partnership with the town of Woodbridge. Additionally, the town of Woodbridge receives part of the revenue share from the array, as well as a lease provided or paid for by Green Skies. This project is also going through a process of approval with the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. They are the governing and regulatory agency on landfills, even if the individual municipalities are responsible for upkeep. As far as upkeep goes, Green Skies, after completion of construction and completion, would take over all operations within the array for mowing and vegetative maintenance. We typically typically have a ground cover of cold season grasses and pollinator-friendly wildflowers, or a pollinator-friendly seed mix. The project will last for about 20 years, at which point we are required to remove the array and all associated equipment and return the landfill to the existing conditions unless an additional deal with the town is secured and worked out. The reason we are in the Zoning Board of Appeals instead of Planning and Zoning is there is no process to get this approved through the normal planning and zoning meetings. And additionally, we felt that if we were to go through planning and zoning, this parcel is residential A, which is strictly residential and has parcels with a minimum of 65,000 square feet. We were concerned that it would create a precedent from planning and zoning's perspective of a change of zoning to allow for such solar arrays to be erected on the majority of the town by zoning regulations. So we felt that this was the appropriate venue for this, on top of there being previous precedent for a solar array approved through this body back in 2019. We will be abiding by all of CT Deep's regulations in terms of environmental protections, stormwater runoff, natural diversity database, which is a wildlife protection, and geotechnical reviews to ensure that we are in compliance of weight limits and do not cause damage to the landfill or the surrounding area. We have avoided as you can see on the site plan, we've avoided the drainage basins in particular because of that, as well as the seemingly random gaps in the array structure are indicative of the location or rough location of the natural gas collection system that was once operational at the landfill and is no longer. The well heads are still in the ground and have pierced through the cap intentionally, so we have avoided the entirety of those. We are happy to answer additional questions or take comments as needed, and we are happy to explain basically anything about the project financially or engineering wise.
Thank you very much, Kalawatsky. Is the term of 20 years a standard term?
Yes, that's an industry standard, and it also includes some provision for the removal. So the duration of the contract that we have with Woodbridge and UI is 20 years. The lease we have with the town is slightly longer, just to allow for removal. Yes.
I'm a construction guy, so I have quite a few questions, both of you, and I'm glad you brought somebody from SLR with you. The first question I have is, when this landfill was initially designed, it had a rainwater, stormwater strategy that was employed. When I looked through SLR's report, which was very comprehensive, I've read quite a few of these in my lifetime, I wanted to ask, when you introduce about 4.3 acres, I think is the number of impervious solar panels onto a site, that changes the dynamic of how that property is going to deal with stormwater or rainwater. Can you talk us through how that's going to be managed? I understand that these are all they're slanted, they're orientated to the south,
Right.
and the rainwater is going to slide off them, but that wasn't the original design of this parcel.
Right.
You're going to change that dramatically. Can you talk us through how that might affect the stormwater drainage on that parcel.
Right, so I'll defer to Mike Gagnon in a second on that, as he is the expert. But I did want to mention that we read through the closure documents of the landfill that were on record with Deep and the town, and saw the leachate issue that was such a
Right.
such a prominent issue in the town, and
Yeah.
that's mostly a controlled issue. That is something that we took a look at because that was raised during the initial approval for our lease. So we have taken extra care to ensure that we will not damage that, and Deep is going to look over that. But as far as stormwater goes, I'll defer the answer to Mike Gagnon, as he knows the regulations far better than I.
Hi, good evening. Just to introduce myself, Mike Gagnon. I am a registered civil engineer with SLR International. My office happens to be in Agawam, Massachusetts. However, most of the effort for this particular project was conducted out of our Cheshire, Connecticut office. So, Mr. Light, just to speak to some of the questions that you have with respect to stormwater, typically landfill caps or landfills such as this one are viewed by Deep as impervious just because of the nature of the polyethylene liner that's underneath the cover material. So, fortunately, with this particular site, there is, just because it was essentially recently closed, I think I understand 1995, there is a whole series of drainage swales to manage the runoff essentially from the cap. And essentially, it's the intent as part of this project is we're gonna be maintaining those swales. With respect to your question with the number of panels and the impervious area, so typically, as long as there's enough spacing that's provided in between the array rows, the panels themselves are actually viewed as what is called disconnected impervious runoff. So unlike a continuous paved surface that might be associated with let's say, a parking lot, the panels themselves allow for that runoff as it flows off the panel and comes off of the drip edge. It's allowed to make contact directly with the ground underneath. Also, as part of the regulation is we have to provide enough elevation of the panels themselves as well, so that as you know, with a lot of the rainfall events, I mean, rainfall never comes like directly downward. A lot of times it's at an angle, so there again, it's allowed to make contact with the grass surface below. So therefore, the amount of runoff that would be generated from this particular site as a result of all the solar panels would not be the same as if you were looking at the same area as like a continuous parking lot. Also, by mere fact is, with the impervious liner underneath, it's already has a very high what they call runoff value associated with it. So essentially, the amount of additional runoff that's produced by these projects is realistically negligible. I think the important factor to consider here, though, is that's predicated on ensuring that the cover, in other words, the grass layer below, is adequate. Obviously, if that was barren earth or some other site, we definitely would have another situation. But as Dennis stated, as a result of construction activities, if there's any areas that happen to be disturbed as a result of the construction of the facility, those areas essentially would be restored to a native seed mix that contains the pollinator. So it's vital that cover it, is maintained with a good stand of turf in order to, and I hope that answers your question.
Okay. My second question is more related to load bearing of what's there. I think your report, if I read it correctly, did some augers, so you understand the strata below the subsurface and what was capped on that landfill. I'd like you to talk about, you're going to be going with an aggregate leveling base and then precast concrete foundations, if you like, and then a steel structure, and then the panels. I didn't see in that report any kind of geotechnical information that told us that these panels or these arrays will not affect the load-bearing capacity of the cap that's on.
So one of the requirements, one of our requirements as part of our post-closure permit application with DEEP is essentially we have to provide them with all of the load rating calculations to ensure so that they're satisfied that we are not damaging the cap as a result of the construction of the arrays.
Okay.
And frankly, that's the reason why we have the wide ballast blocks, is essentially to distribute that load so that we don't exceed, I believe it's 0.5 kips per square foot. I believe that's the figure that we generally use. And we've applied this principle on many other projects, many other landfill projects as well, with success.
Okay. My third question, sorry to be technical, I'm a construction guy, and this is more relevant to the residents who are pretty close by. These are all going to be, this is like 4.33 acres of panels that are going to be south orientated, as I understand it, and south of this field are residences. And I would like to understand, and not only residences, I'd like to understand how that might affect traffic coming in and out of transfer station. We all use it, I certainly do on an ongoing basis. Is there any risk of, at any time of the year, any solar reflection that might be a problem for traffic going up and down that road or the residents that are across the road?
Sure, I'll defer back to Dennis to answer that question. Thank you.
So, again, Dennis Hicks, Green Skies, that there's sort of two parts to that. First is, yes, as you can see, they are all orientated south. North is slightly askew in this image. There are some residences to the south, but not directly south. Well, not terribly. These trees down here provide some screening, a remarkable amount of screening, as is, including the entire forested area off to the other side of the access road. We are open to adding additional screening. I will caution that the limitations of a landfill with the cap mean that we can't place deep-rooted plants on it out of risk of exposing the waste when the roots dig through the impervious layer. So we have not conducted a glare study, but based on the surrounding vegetation, it's pretty unlikely that there would be any kind of view while there's leaf on. And leaf off is easier to tell during this time of the year. But these are evergreen trees down here that are already going to remain they're going to remain as visual screening for the entirety of the project, and the rest is you know, wooded with various trees. I couldn't tell you exactly what's in there. Again, we are open to adding additional screening in there if the glare becomes a problem or as a condition of approval. But there would probably be more glare for the access road to the baseball fields than there would be to any of the public roads on Acorn Hill or Acorn Hill Road extended.
Have you guys done a study of that? I mean, the SLR study for, water course and wetlands was great. I've seen many of those, and it was very comprehensive, but why would you have not done a study to kind of look at that, for not only residents, but people driving in and out of the transfer station?
Frankly, because you really, as you're driving into the transfer station, and I was just down there last week when I had to meet UI on the property, it's really difficult to see as you're driving out there. We didn't do a glare study because the usefulness of them is questionable at this stage because we don't know. We haven't gotten anything approved yet. And they are typically they're typically not as useful as as people imagine them to be. We would be potentially open to doing one as a condition of approval, but really this is surrounded on 3 sides by dense forest with no residents, and the one direction that it is, we've notified all of the abutters and are open to adding screening should that become an issue.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking that, just for some color, is seasons change.
Yeah.
The sun's at a different level.
Right.
Your slant on these panels is fixed.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just concerned that might be an issue for residents and people using our transfer station if they're driving in. That may be worthy of further study.
Yeah. Understood on that point. I believe we could accomplish that with screening if it were to be a problem. Because these are pretty dense trees down here, just as evergreens, and then the rest are, leaf on, leaf off. Conditions will change that as well as elevation of the sun. That is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Flynn.
Speaking of the baseball fields, have you worked on landfills you've worked on numerous landfills in the state. Have any of those had fields adjacent to them like this?
So New Haven, West Haven, and East Haven, no. And then, do you know if there have been any? I'm not sure if we had any that have had ball fields on them like this. We have had some that have that are public parks, less recreation fields this close to them. Out in New London, one of our projects is in a public park that has baseball fields, but they're significantly further away than this. We don't foresee this as a issue. We will work with the town on, when there are big events to ensure that there's access, and we don't plan on restricting access to either the transfer station or the ball fields in general, but a delivery might. So we can coordinate with the town around that. But otherwise, we don't foresee an impact to the ball fields really at all.
And so if you do need to do something to mitigate this glare, whether it be the screens, which would be a man-made structure, right? So that would be to the exterior of the cap,
So
so
there's-
it wouldn't penetrate the cap?
There's a couple of options, typically for screening. There's vegetative screening. That's typically what we try to do first, or there is privacy slats, which through chain link fence is not necessarily the most appealing, although it does block the view of the panels. As far as glare goes, I'm really not concerned about that, as the ball fields are
Or to the north?
pretty much to the north of the array. But for screening, if there were certain angles or certain areas that would be improved or are particularly bad, we would try to find an angle on Woodbridge property, but off of the landfill cap to block it, like say filling in the rest of the trees down here, or up in the top. The cap extends basically the entirety of the cleared area down off screen here and somewhat through here. I would have to refer back to the drawings exactly for where that ends.
And then circling back to your previous comment about the vegetative type of
Yeah.
screening, that's probably not likely suitable for this because, again, you can't plant something that's going to have strong enough roots in order to grow vertically high enough, right? So it's probably not likely that.
Unless there was a
something-
particular angle that needed to be, if the access road to the transfer station was getting excessive glare, there might be a solution that is off the cap that can be accomplished through that. But otherwise, for a landfill, the best option would be to use the privacy slats. Likely, we would work with the town engineer to ensure a solution was found there.
And I have another question. You said this is for a duration of 20 years?
Yeah.
And at which point we could continue
So-
on, or if we choose not to, at the end of that 20-year cycle, is there a third party that would inspect the landfill to have an objective analysis of what may have happened over the course of 20 years?
I do not have that answer for you off the top of my head. I believe it would be DEEP. I believe DEEP would be the entity that would be overseeing the deconstruction and return to the closure documents, as specified in the closure documents back in the mid-90s.
If something, say, hoping for the best, plan for the worst, if something happened that, during the course of this, that was a negative, impact to the landfill, who is responsible for that?
I believe that's us, right? Yeah, Ryan?
Ryan Linares, Green Skies Clean Energy, 127 Washington Ave, North Haven. So the question was regarding if something were to occur that needed to be create a remedy for. So that was a big stipulation in the lease agreement that the town attorney reviewed diligently, and the consensus is, and usually pertains to almost all of our lease agreements on town landfills, is if Green Skies were to if there was some sort of damage done to the landfill cap, it would be our responsibility to remediate that and fix it and bring it back to its original state. The town attorney also required that we put up a decommissioning bond in place to be able to town will be able to have access to the capital to remove the system if Green Skies wasn't here in 15 years to do that. So there were a lot of protections put in place in the lease agreement to protect the town on that side.
You had mentioned Cindy Gibbons, you had mentioned other towns. Have you experienced any ill reprieve with other towns as it relates to the cap and things of that nature?
We have not, and I believe this would probably be our 15th landfill in the state of Connecticut. So we, as Dennis had said, New Haven, West Haven, East Haven, Meriden, New London, Portland. We've done almost every landfill, installed solar on almost every landfill that's available to lease, and we have not run into an issue like that.
What's the longest tenure on any of those? Do you
I'd say probably Meriden. It's been about a decade on top of their landfill.
Sorry, I have more. Forgive me, it's the construction in me.
Yeah.
Could you explain to us, I know that in the technical memorandum that was provided, there was a good narrative about S&E measures during construction. Could you explain to us, just because we have members of the public here and there are residents on that road, so, you know, I'm cognizant of that, what measures you will take to minimize disruption, noise, dirt on the road, cleaning up after yourselves. I would understand that you can work during normal working hours, which is quite acceptable. And what S&E measures outside of that parcel, and I mean on Acorn Road, you would attempt to make this a less messy project than people might imagine. What measures,
Sure.
measures would you take during construction? And also part two of that is you've identified S&E measures during construction. What would you have to do post-construction? Because understanding that the whole stormwater management of that property is going to change when you put the structure up. What you would recommend or what you would do to make sure that runoff and the whole watercourse and wetlands thing is not affected diversely.
So I could definitely speak to the pre and during construction process, specifically because it was another big point within the lease agreement. But we do need to, months before we start construction, there has to be a meeting with the town and its engineers, building and electrical, to coordinate the schedule of when this construction is to take place. Specifically, not just because of the access to the town dump, but also for kids and parents, playing on this recreational field. We have to make sure we coordinate whenever that there's going to be a lot of traffic there. We need to dial back the construction, and when we know that there is less traffic on site, we can continue our workflow. So it was a pretty critical point within the lease agreement, was to just make sure that these schedules are aligned. During certain times of the year, it's probably busier than others. Regarding construction safety, I don't know if either of you would want to take that. But the construction plans are coordinated with the assistance of the DEP. They're going to monitor, all of our construction during and afterwards as well. So we'll need to have third parties like SLR on site during construction, post construction, to monitor what we've constructed here.
Again, Mike Gagnon with SLR. So in speaking to your specific question, with respect to S&E controls, or sedimentation and erosion controls for that matter. Excuse me. As we've been stating all along, we cannot pierce the landfill cap, such as, as you know, with the installation of silt fence or core logs that require stakes at various intervals to stabilize those siltation barriers. We actually have a detail in the plan set that we use on our landfill projects that does not require staking. And one of the things that we recommend on these projects is to use the what is called a compost filter tube, and it's essentially a core log that's filled with mulch. And just by the weight of it, it has a tendency to secure itself to the ground. So it tends to be very effective at sedimentation and erosion control. Your question with respect to, cleaning up after construction, as with any site, any construction site for that matter, we have language in the drawings that specifies, particularly on neighboring roadways, that they need to be kept clean during construct. This would be no different than any other construction site, so that might be a matter of conducting periodic street sweeping as necessary, if not daily, depending on the tracking of debris that might occur. Keep in mind that, again, on this particular project, earth moving activities are going to be very minimal to begin with, just because, again, we cannot conduct any excavation on the cap anyway. So any earth excavation is going to be very minimal, so that in itself is going to dramatically reduce the potential for sedimentation or runoff, in runoff. As Ryan had also mentioned, as during construction, one of the requirements by DEEP is to conduct periodic construction compliance monitoring to ensure that, that everything is carried out as specified on the drawings, including sedimentation and erosion control.
What sort of monitoring is performed after construction to make sure there's no runoff, for example, or anything else of that nature?
So if I can understand, you're talking after
Post-construction.
Post-construction. So of these facilities, they are periodically inspected, and obviously, if there is any issues that arise, as part of the agreement with DEEP, and I understand also with the town, that must be corrected. And that might be a matter of, let's say, if there's a breach somewhere in the cap as a result of, erosion, as part of the post-closure with the facility, that must be addressed anyway, whether or not, the solar facility is there.
What sort of issues have arisen at some of your older facilities, such as Meriden or the others?
I will let others.
I would say you can speak to the projects that you work on.
Yeah. We haven't had really any significant, I personally have been involved with a few of the projects that were mentioned here. Most notably, we had 2 projects in West Haven on their landfills. We have a project in New London that is just getting underway. And again, is because of the diligent compliance monitoring that was done during construction. And once the cap has been restored with that vegetative cover, that typically minimizes what can occur afterwards. Keep in mind that, once the facility is constructed, in terms of access within the fenced-in compound area. That's generally relatively minimal anyway. So, oftentimes a breach of the cap happens as a result of, a vehicle going up there or, some other activity, man-made activity. And again, once the facility is up and running, that's very minimal. Typically, they have to access the facility on a monthly basis. Let's say if there's a broken panel, that can be done with a relatively minimal equipment that minimizes disruption of the cap.
That's a question. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, Maurice Clark. Thanks for being here and letting us your expertise. But my question is related to, given the proximity to the ball field, I'm sure there's a lot of adolescent activity. What fail-safe exists in the other regulations that might, I guess, mitigate adolescent tampering? I mean, outside of the chain link fence, is there anything that would kind of reduce the risk of adolescent tampering? I mean, I'm sure kids will be kids, as they say, but the last thing I want to hear is some accident happened at a solar facility in Woodbridge and some child has been injured.
Sure.
Or teenager.
Right. So the facility is enclosed with a 7-foot-high chain link fence that will be placed actually on a ballast system. So again, those posts cannot penetrate to the cap. So essentially, it's like a floating fence that's around the perimeter. And the 7-foot-high is the regulated height per the National Electric Code. And the idea is that that is potentially, hopefully, going to keep people out. And I don't believe that really there's been an issue, with people getting into these facilities anyway, as long as they're adequately secured. Right.
Tom, I know you want to say something, but continuing on the subject of the ball fields, during the planning phase of this project, has anyone from Green Skies and/or our town engaged with the leagues to get their input, their thoughts, potential, buy-in, feedback, anything? And if not, will there be an attempt to do so?
So we actually, during I forget if it was, I believe it was during the lease meeting, and then afterwards, we were approached by an individual who I'm forgetting the name of right now. I believe he was either in charge or related to the Beth Woods Association. He was mostly concerned with electromagnetic interference with the wireless scoreboard system. We haven't been in touch with the association directly, but we will obviously have to be once construction starts. As ideally, we would like to build in the summer, and that's obviously when baseball happens. So there's going to have to be some discussions there, and if the follow-up question about baseballs comes up, we are responsible for all damage to the array. We will come, replace the panels, dispose of it properly. They are not considered hazardous waste, and that is just entirely, that cost is on us. That costs on Green Skies to as part of maintaining the facility if a foul ball goes wrong. But no, we have not at this time reached out outside of affirming, or to the best of our ability, that the solar array will not affect the scoreboard.
Okay. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think it would be wise to apprise them of, make sure they're fully aware of everything,
Yes.
because I think it'd be hard for us to move forward and then put the cart before the horse, and then these teams and leagues find out about things that they may not have been okay with.
Okay.
And just to
Yeah.
kind of follow up on, well, two things. How close is the fence going to be to the access road to the ball fields? Because you're talking a 7-foot high fence. And when they have tournaments up there, they get a lot of people. And sometimes they park along the side of the access road. Is the fence going to come right up? Are they going to lose any space along the road?
So I believe that we won't, I can defer to Mike Gagnon on this, but the fence line is here. So the fence line won't come all the way to the road. We avoided this section so that we didn't have to cross the swales with the arrays. The electronics get weird in there. And the access road is shown is going up to here. It will connect up to the existing access road out here, but the chain link fence will only be out till, I don't know this distance offhand, but you will still be able to park along here. The one exception might be the equipment pad. The equipment pad is also ground mounted on a cement pad that we believe will be too heavy to rest on top of the cap of the landfill. They typically are. The exact location of that is either going to be there, or if the cap extends that far, we will have to relocate it to a different location. That would be the only sort of intrusion to the access road for parking on the access road. You'll still be able to drive by it just fine. And yeah, so we have the turnaround in the access road, but otherwise, the fence will be as shown.
Okay. And then just to follow up on the question about the construction of the panels. I understand the pad is sufficiently wide enough to bear the weight, but how can you assure us that the equipment you're going to be using to get everything up there? You'll have to drive over the cap.
Yeah.
And this heavy equipment will be driving up. Those tires aren't sufficiently wide enough to not go down into the soil and potentially breach the cap.
I flagged this as soon as I got the geotechnical report from SLR for our construction team. I don't have their response on hand, but I'll let Mike Gagnon respond to it. It is something we are aware of. It is something that we will respect. We know that we will have to use I forget what it's called, low impact or low ground force equipment on this, as we saw in the closure documents as well as the geotechnical report.
Do we know how deep it is? How to the cap?
Oh, to the cap? That's 12 or 18 inches of topsoil.
12. You said 12 inches.
At least 12 inches, yes.
Yeah, I'm concerned that the heavy equipment driving over is going to be pressing stuff down. I mean, we don't know what's under there. Could be rocks, could be other things that could pierce that cap. And then once the cap is pierced, going back to the monitoring, once the construction is done and everybody's packed up and gone, if the equipment that was used breached it, how are we going to know that?
Yes, definitely a valid concern, and something that I'm not a geotechnical engineer by trade, but our staff is looking at this very carefully. So one of the things that we will have to stipulate in the construction documents when that time comes is the maximum amount of wheel loading. So typically, to your point, a construction vehicle, let's say a concrete mixer, right? The point loads at the wheels are very high,
Right.
Because all of the weight essentially is concentrated, and in a situation like this, that needs to be minimized. And how do we do that?
More
The use
axles.
of, right, so the use of, stipulate the use of tracked equipment, the use of timber swamp mats, which are typically used, for example, on a wetland crossing for that purpose, because typically those soils are very low bearing, so therefore that weight has to be distributed accordingly. And on a landfill cap, it's a very similar situation. So as part of the construction documents, we're actually stipulating what the maximum wheel load can be with construction equipment
Okay.
to minimize disturbance to the cap. But
Yeah,
definitely,
I just want you to be considering that.
absolutely, and that's something, at the onset of this project, we had a concern with as well, just because this is a fairly recent installation in terms of a landfill. And particularly with that underlying polyethylene liner, that needs to be protected at all cost.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So your guys' experience in Connecticut is 20 years, as far back as 20 years?
At least 20 years, yes.
Okay. I presume that other companies across the United States have maybe a greater time frame. Have they experienced any problems or shown any problems that you've already addressed and that you could tell us about?
I am not aware of any, but, obviously, anything that's presented, in our documents, including the drawings, everything is being overseen by DEP to ensure that we comply with their requirements. Because ultimately, as case in point, right now we're responding to some review comments by them. We've gone through one level of review in terms of the drawings and documents that have been submitted. So ultimately, they're going to be the ones that, are going to come back and say, you need to comply with X, Y, and Z.
Well, not just comply, but if there's a longer history, 30, 40 years of people, other companies doing these kinds of installations,
I'll let
what,
Dennis-
sometimes the things that you didn't anticipate show up. So what have you learned from other companies who've done these and anticipate so those don't become problems here?
I'm sorry, I think I misunderstood the question. You're asking about other arrays and other projects, not this one in particular. Okay. For that, we haven't encountered, at least with this landfill, well, we haven't encountered problems that have been unique to the project or have been we haven't exactly researched the deep history of constructing on top of the landfills for this because at least the solar industry as a whole is not particularly old. There may be some documentation that exists. Typically, we try to find the historic documents, the closure documents, and base everything we can off of those. But we haven't, obviously we can't touch the site outside of any study process stuff now. So all of our stuff is preemptive. It's trying to identify the issues and have solutions to them coming here and to construction, and I don't believe that anything that we've encountered is really something that I've seen another company deal with, but it could happen. I haven't had an extensive review of the literature.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
Yep. What happens to the panels in 20 years?
So the panels, solar panels used to, like even as far as 5-10 years ago, be considered hazardous waste and have to be managed properly as hazardous waste. No, they no longer are. The panels are approved by multiple bodies as not hazardous waste, and so when a panel breaks or at the end of the process, they can be thrown away through normal processes. There's a growing industry of recycling that's still not quite up to snuff yet, but right now they're not hazardous waste and can just be disposed of through normal municipal wastes, and we would handle all of that process. But that note about hazardous waste applies if, say, a baseball goes through the panels. You won't have hazardous waste leaching onto the top of an impervious surface, which would be a big problem for the landfill.
Are they, so you said they previously were considered hazardous and now they are not. Is that due to a change in the composition of them or a change in the guidelines in the criteria that says something is hazardous versus not being hazardous?
It's a technology change. Typically, as far as I understand it, I'm no expert on this, it's a refinement. There's a refinement process to getting out the metalloids that are actually the photoelectric part, and typically those carry heavy metals with them, but the refinement process as it's gone through the years has improved to lower that number.
I have a question. I just want to go back to when you were talking to my colleague. You mentioned the power station, I guess you say, it's not gonna, so is that within this application is 4.33 acres? Is that within that 4.33 acres or outside of that?
It is outside of the fenced-in area. It is right here. It is what? 10 by 20 feet wide. It contains the inverters, the transformer, and some switchgear. I'm blanking on the exacts. Oh, they're not in here because these are the symbols. So that is the actual electrical equipment that we are required to have to interconnect to the grid. That is the equipment that will be pairing up to UI. So how it works is there's an actual point of interconnection, and that is the legal distinction between what is owned by Green Skies and what is owned by UI. So we are currently still in ongoing studies and negotiations with UI about this project, but that is where all of the equipment would be stored for that. I don't believe that it would. I don't remember off the top of my head if it's fully included in the calculation of the 4.3 acres. However, I don't believe that it would significantly move the needle on that number. Yes.
I had a question about how
I just want to clarify, so I'm sorry, so it is a part of this
Yes,
request?
it is. Yes, it is connected.
And is it enclosed within the fence?
Yes, it has to abide by National Electric Code. So that will also get its own. It'll get its own enclosure and 7-foot tall chain link fence. We can go shorter, but going shorter requires barbed wire. We typically don't like it.
Are there characteristics of the station such as noise and sound?
So the inverters and transformers, when they're running, will produce a sound. There are fans to cool the electronics inside. There's I believe the sound regulations. Oh, no, that's not for this town. But when they are not producing power, they are not on. So when the sun goes down, they turn off, so they would only be on during daytime hours. They are about equivalent to a computer fan or a refrigerator, we do not believe that there would be sound impacts off of the parcel. We are also able to have some solutions to that, including moving that equipment pad either further away from residences, further away from the ball field, or further away from the transfer station, although given the nature of that, that might be the preferable direction to move the equipment pad should it be an issue.
So this station would be on par with, like a household refrigerator, the sound of a household refrigerator is what you're saying?
I believe so. I believe that, yes. So what's the, I don't have the drop-off rate on hand. But typically, when these projects are larger and go through the Connecticut Siting Council, the inverters and equipment pads are required to be about 200 feet off of property lines. I believe we're that far here, and if not, we are willing to ensure that that's compliant too.
Okay.
I'm not clear on what you just said. It would have the sound of a refrigerator fan. Would it be just one, or are you talking about many times over?
It would be so it would be per inverter, but there's an exponential drop off to sound as it propagates out. So again, while next to it, it's going to be a decent hum. The further away you get from it, even by a few feet, that sound drops dramatically. We have in the past produced sound studies and would be open to producing one as a condition of approval if so required.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just one. I don't know that I was involved around when you guys were initially engaged to produce this. And as one of the town's building officers, I'm kind of involved in looking at things generally. Who benefits from this?
So I think Ryan is probably best suited for that.
Directly. I mean, who generally directly benefits from the solar energy?
Yep. So as Dennis had said initially, this is part of the non-residential energy solution. It's called the acronym NRES program in the state of Connecticut. You have the ability to bid into that if you're on town property, and you're able to utilize town electricity meters. So for example, the town hall or police station or the schools. So what we did was we sized this project, and conveniently it was the real estate available was kind of the perfect size for the amount of electric meters that are owned by the town of Woodbridge. So the power that we produce, we size it based on the meters available, and we provide a bill credit essentially for the town of Woodbridge. That's a small portion of the value that the town will receive. And now the other aspect of it, and this was a smart hedge on the town's part, was they also wanted a lease agreement to utilize the land. So not only will the town have a piece of the power that's all kilowatt hours that are produced by the system, they'll be able to receive savings on their town-owned electricity bills, but they'll also have a sure lease agreement for 20 years. And the lease is for $60,000 a year, and the kilowatt hour savings is going to be around $20,000 a year annually. So it's about a $80,000 swing in value per year to the town of Woodbridge.
So what will be supported by that though? Because it's like a megawatt of power.
Yeah.
That's a ton of energy.
Yeah.
Right. So what's that going to support?
So for context, I guess, you know, the Amity Regional School will be about a 1 megawatt of power per year that it will require demand from the energy grid. I don't believe Amity is not part of this equation. We're actually working on a separate opportunity there. So what we're going to utilize in this instance are all of the municipal buildings' electric meters. That's how we were able to size this. And we're able to, I believe it's 1.4 million kilowatt hours we required to be able to utilize, and we were able to meet that just looking through all the data that the town provided us. So it's a nice even match to kilowatt hours versus demand in this town.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we can close that part. Do we have a point for town members to make comments?
The residents.
Who?
The residents.
Yeah,
You need to have public comment.
I'm sorry?
You need public comment.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And we should note for the record that you were given a letter from Marlo Taneri, and who lives at 74 Acorn Hill.
Yeah.
I gave you a hard copy, you got an electronic version that was also provided to the applicants. And so that's part of the hearing.
Right.
Is Marlo here?
Yes.
Oh.
Am I invited to speak?
My name is Marlo Teneri. I live at 74 Acorn Hill Road. I produced a letter that you folks are holding in your hands now. I guess just as an introduction of myself to this committee and to the people behind me, I'm not sure anybody in this town has as much respect, love, and consideration for that neighborhood and that land as I might. I say that because my great-grandfather owned that land. He ran the farm up there. Headhead Road is named after him. My mom drove down that road on a vegetable wagon to sell the produce over on Main Street in Ansonia when she was a little girl. So we go back a long way. My daughter is the 5th generation of our family live up that way. My aunts and uncles all own that land that the landfill was on before the town bought it from them. So, you know, we've watched this throughout my lifetime. I was 10 years old, I think, when that landfill came in. And I watched it over time, the destruction that was done out there and the environmental damage, the trout lake that we used to swim in as kids and drink out of the spring that bubbled out of that hillside, multiple colors of the rainbow. It wasn't a good thing. But we sat here in the gymnasium several years back and they talked about the landfill and they thought, what a good idea to save revenue. You know, everybody else around the state was doing it, so let's join the crowd. That wisdom didn't pay off in the long run. We all know how that ended, and I'm sitting here today and we're talking about a proposal, and I realize that the purpose of you folks here tonight is fairly focused. You're looking at, should we issue or not issue a variance? And I understand that, you know, I might wander a little bit out of that scope, but I think it's important for everybody to understand where we're coming from, and that it's not just this meeting, but meetings that are going to be forthcoming as the topics that need to be discussed. And so let's start that discussion now. If you don't mind, I don't know if you've all had the opportunity to read that letter. I'd like to read it into the record for the benefit of the people behind me, just in case they don't have it. It's titled Zoning and Environmental Concerns Related to Proposal by Green Skies in partnership with the town of Woodbridge to construct and operate a 1 megawatt solar array system on the previously capped landfill. Pretty straightforward stuff. I listed several concerns on here, some of which have been addressed and some of which I didn't even think of, that questions you have asked, and they were well thought. So I appreciate that. But I know that we're dealing with an extremely hazardous, environmentally sensitive site, and it has an established history of leachate plume causing contamination to local groundwater, along with various local or remote bodies of surface water, including a nearby trout lake, the spring, a stream, the downstream pond, Paulson's Pond, Bladen's Brook, which flows into local rivers and eventually into Long Island Sound. So this is no small matter. Extensive amounts of time and effort and financial expense have been previously invested by residents such as myself, other residents on the street, the town, the state, and federal governments to properly cap that existing landfill. We designed the neighborhood friendly transfer station. We tucked it in back where it belongs, so it's not as visibly invasive. It's quiet, and we did the best we could to make it more friendly. And we eventually they constructed the public sports fields, outdoor recreation parks, and so forth, in a manner to minimize any future environmental impact and to restore us to more residentially compatible use of that property. And it's relatively unobstructed space now, especially that capped landfill. It's open. You have deer grazing out there, turkeys running through. You'll see foxes, coyotes, bear, and other wildlife going through. We have a mountain lion out there now, for God's sakes, that's taken a liking to the rock hillside behind us. Placement of extensive solar array components and associated equipment, including numerous heavy-weighted concrete footings or ballasts, as they're calling them, with steel framing, would impose substantial point loads and significantly increase the overall load factors on that capped landfill, causing increased pressures and subsequent increase in leachate, plume activity. And as I sit here and read this, one of my neighbors asked a good question. He said, how do we know that the cap can't support this structure? And as I sat there, I thought about it, and I said, it's not us. It's not up to us to prove it won't. It's up to them to prove that it will. And anything short of that, if they don't clear that hurdle, this project should never start, because there's too much at risk here. And based on the financial numbers that they presented, $80,000+ a year. We have over 9,000 residents in this town. $8 or $9 a year in revenue per resident. If there's any risk at all involved with this, we just simply shouldn't do it. It's not going to pay. Just to say we're going green and make us feel good, wow, that's an awful risk to take, in my opinion. I think there's a very real potential for damage to existing landfill cap during the initial phases of construction, which would include operation of heavy equipment for transportation and placement of various construction materials, as you very well pointed out earlier, and other components, which can easily result in undetected breach of that shallow, impermeable cap. And how would anybody ever know? You're gonna wait 10, 12, 15 years until it shows up in groundwater somewhere, and then you gotta start investigating where's the breach? That's high-risk activity out there. And you don't have to be an engineer to know this. Common sense tells you that. You asked some really good questions earlier on. Some of you might be engineers, but I'm sure not all of you are, because common sense would bring those questions to the surface. And that's why I'm bringing these questions up now. And I think that, it's intended to prevent water infiltration in that barrier. Well, I have a pretty strong mechanical aptitude. I was a commercial pilot in the day. I've gotten into real estate, land development, construction. I don't claim to be an engineer, and I'm not the brightest guy in the room, but I'm not an idiot either. And I think when you start looking at placing thousands of pounds of weight on angled land with a plastic barrier that's 12 to 18 inches below, that soil, when it gets wet, it wants to move. You put loads on there, it wants to shift. Now you got a plastic barrier that wants to be stretched, maybe torn. It might not happen right away. It might happen during construction. It might happen 5, 8, 10 years down the road after a real heavy rainstorm and snow melts. You don't know, but we'll never know, and that's the problem. That's the concern I have going forward. How can we guarantee it? And the answer is, quite frankly, there will never be a guarantee. And short of that, I'm not sure we should be considering this project because the risks are too great. Also, we can pocket $9 a year. I'm not sure it makes sense. I talked to Dennis Hicks a while back in August, and we had a very nice conversation. But it also became apparent to me in tonight's meeting that they don't have all the answers. Far from it right now. They're still working on DEP review and approval. Okay, it's a process, it takes time, I get that. So we don't have a lot of answers yet, and I'm not sure we'll ever have them to a satisfactory level to clear that hurdle that I think we need to clear as a town. There's going to be an inability to run below ground networking wires out there because of restriction with that shallow cap. So all the interconnecting wires, aside from panel to panel, the roads have to be connected. All that's going to be above grade, it has to be. That's another visual impairment. Location for placement of that required platform they talked about, it's sizable, it's weight intensive, it's visually intrusive. You have some audible noise from the inverters and transformers and equipment that can't be located anywhere in the cap. And that has to be fenced in also. They have the installation of that 7-foot high fence. Can't be on the cap because you're gonna perforate it. What are they gonna do? Well, he just said, and he answered the question, and it wasn't the answer I was hoping for. We can use big concrete ballast for every pole. It's gonna sit right on the surface. Common sense is gonna tell you, it's gonna settle over time. And that fence is gonna look all rickety and crooked, it's just gonna happen. You don't need to think about it. Just accept the idea, it's gonna happen. It's not gonna look pretty. It's not gonna be one of those straight perpendicular and plumb fences that we're all hoping for. And even if it were, you're talking a 7-foot chain link fence in a residential neighborhood, ball fields, and an open pasture right now and so forth. That's going to restrict all sorts of wildlife activity. Visually, it's an impairment in a residential zone. It doesn't belong there. We have, what else did we have? I'm going down this list. I kind of got off it, but I'm passionate about this, and so please work with me here. When you start talking about multiple 12 to 13 foot high solar panels, steel structures, which are substantial in nature, they're not like the panels you're putting on your roof. You have large angle iron, galvanized, whatever they're going to do with it to support these panels, large concrete ballasts, on leveling, gravel footings, on sloped ground. That doesn't look natural. It looks anything but. And then you wrap all that in a 7-foot fence. There's been enough damage done to this residential neighborhood over the years. We've given and given and given as a neighborhood for the betterment of our community. Maybe it's time we stopped and the town started giving back just a little bit. Just a little bit of consideration for the people out there. We're not asking for a lot. And we're counting on people like you to do this for us because we're just individuals. To go up against the town, municipality, and or a company like Green Skies, we don't have the financial reserves, the time or energy to do that. So we lean on you people to help us with this and to use common sense and just look at it for what it is. This company's gonna make a lot of money compared to what the town will make. And the revenue for a company that size is substantial. For a town like us, $9 a year doesn't mean a lot. And I'm not sure we should even have to have this discussion, but here we are. So I'll continue on with it, and I know from discussions with Dennis, and it's expected, because I followed this entire capital landfill over the years. I was front and center on all of it. We knew when we spent the money on here to cap that landfill that we were doing a shallow cap for a couple reasons. Most importantly, financial gain. It was less expensive, and it was going to do the job. Everybody agreed. It'll have future limitations, but that's okay. We're never going to do anything with it anyway. It'll be good enough. Yeah, good enough for the way it sits. Not good enough for what they're asking us to allow them to do. This is high risk, in my opinion, a higher risk landfill than any landfill they've worked on in the past. Because the cap is so shallow. The pitch slopes out there. The nearby residents who are dependent on wells, private wells, we don't have city water out there. The possibility of contaminating wells, especially with the plume on this, if you look at DEP records, it's headed down through that lake, down to the Paulson Pond and the neighborhoods down there. not even so much toward my house or our surrounding neighbors, although we're at risk. It's headed down that direction, and I'm not even sure half those people know about it. We need to think about that, because the cost of bringing in city water will cost you a whole lot more than $9 a year if you're one of those residents. So, you know, that's just something that with DEP, there's expected difficulty in compliance. And I'm not sure they're gonna clear that hurdle, and I'll be honest with you, if you ask them, they're not sure they're gonna clear it. They don't know. But if they can't, we should never start this project to begin with. If you can't see crossing that finish line, you shouldn't start the race. And I think that we don't have enough answers yet to even know if we should be running this race. And yet, here we are. So I'm gonna take it a separate at a time because I don't have a choice. But I'm asking the people of this town, not just this committee, but other commissions as well, to please think about what we're doing. This is important. This has long-term consequences. If nothing else, even if they don't damage the cap, best case scenario is they're gonna put a visual scar on that landscape next 20+ years. I'm 67, I don't know if I'll live to see the day those panels ever come down. And I quite frankly, our neighborhood doesn't deserve that. I hope that somebody has the courage to stand up and say, you know what, enough is enough. That neighborhood's paid enough to help this town. We can live without these panels financially, and they can live without the revenue because they'll find somewhere else to make some money. That's my personal feeling on it. I know from experience that you can't place too much faith in DEP. These people work hard, they try their best, but in the end, there's no guarantees. They have certain rules and requirements they have to satisfy, and if they are, they're gonna give them the approval. Oversight and compliance for the construction phases, maybe it's okay, but they don't have X-ray vision. Neither does anybody else. How are we gonna know if that plastic barrier gets torn, or eventually gets torn? You're never gonna know. And that's the real hidden risk here, that nobody's ever gonna be able to answer to a standard to which I think is acceptable, which is why I think that this is an ill-conceived idea from the very get-go. But again, I'm one person with an opinion that I'm sharing because I hope the rest of the people in this community are smart enough to see what I see and to maybe make a decision on here that won't have a negative impact on this community for years going forward. The push to go green is heavy. I feel it. I'm a building inspector. I've been a building inspector for 30 years. I know that. I've been a builder and a land developer, so I understand where they're coming from. And I have no opposition whatsoever to solar power. It's a good, clean energy when it's done right in a safe, responsible manner. I'm just not sure that this is ever going to clear that hurdle or standard either. Working on a capped landfill is fraught with danger.
Perhaps you can finish, I mean, I'm sure other folks want to speak.
Okay.
So maybe we can keep it to like another minute or so.
I guess the only comment I make on here is that if I understand this properly, they have a burden of proof of a hardship here tonight. And I'm not even sure if the town is technically part of this application, but the town, in my opinion, wouldn't be able to prove a hardship because they actually created that landfill intentionally and knowingly, and they can't come back now and say, well, you know, it's a hardship for us as a municipality because, you know, we have a landfill that we can't do anything else with. Well, it's self-imposed. And Green Skies, I'm not sure, has any ground to claim a hardship because they don't own the land. They're never going to own it. This is motivated purely by financial gain, and they could easily walk away because it's voluntary. And I think based on that, hopefully you guys have some things to think about and weigh. And I thank you for your time and your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Perhaps we can keep comments to 2 or 3 minutes.
Robert Hill, 68 Acorn Hill Road. So I can appreciate trying to keep it brief, but just sitting here tonight, I made 26 notes.
okay, just sitting here. So I hope you're going to indulge me to go through each one of them.
Are they different than what's already been said?
Many of them. I'll try to skip over the ones that are, I think about this and, it's a little bit of bust to Abilene kind of thing. This project probably shouldn't have got this far at this point without additional work and due diligence being done by the applicant. A lot of what I've heard here tonight, the project isn't fully baked. If you approve it, we'll go to the next step. And what I sense is the next person's going to kick it along because the last person kicked it along. And I'm not sure if that's the best way of doing things. I think that this thing should have been all buttoned up before the Board of Selectmen even saw it. And a lot of these questions should have already been answered, in my opinion. I do agree with one of the points that Marlo said, and it's an expression I hear at work sometimes. I'm not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze, okay? In terms of the risk that we're talking about here and what the overall benefit is. And just so you know, this doesn't apply to your particular board, but we're not getting any personal property taxes off of this either. One of the points that was already made about the hardship that was just made true. One of the things that comes up here that I heard, it's a new point here, we're talking about a zoning change. I think that opens up a little bit of Pandora's box here in terms of what we're dealing with here. And I'm not sure if it's appropriate that this is the way it's going to happen, that we're going to change the zoning in a residential area to create a commercial operation here. I also share the concern with the cap. I do think a number of the points that have been made about the compromising of the cap are of concern. And I do think that as much as they'll be responsible for repairing it, I think that Marlo's point about even knowing if it's compromised when that stuff starts shifting around, we may not even know if it's compromised and water's going into the former dump and then it's polluting our water that we drink there. The 7-foot fence, I can tell you, having coached baseball up on that field, and I can tell you when a ball gets fouled off and clears the fence there, that's probably right now 5 feet, I can guarantee you some overzealous kid's going to climb that fence because I've seen it happen previously to go get the ball. Okay, so I think what's the concern in terms of the safety? Is there electric there that a kid could touch something and end up getting electrocuted? So that's a concern I have around that. In addition, I hadn't even thought about the glare thing until I heard it tonight. Yes, if you are playing first base on Acorn 2 and the ball gets thrown from the shortstop, there was a point in time of the day, it's hard to see that ball coming across. Now I'm picturing the panels behind there and the reflection. So yeah, that's probably a dangerous thing. And kind of disappointed that the group did, knowing that there's baseball being played there, that there wasn't a discussion or front running like, hey, what would your concerns be if we do this? That would be really, I think, the best way to approach that issue. A comment was made at the town meeting in May that was asked how many homes will this service, and I heard 5,000. Well, I'm going to guess that the average electric bill now has got to be at least $300. It's like $1.5 million worth of revenue per year. Boy, that seems like a pretty nice deal. Doesn't apply to your concern, but so I think the question about the water thrust, I looked at some pictures when we were sitting here of landfills and that type of thing and looked at this. It isn't just each panel separate from each other and you're falling up. You have a fairly large group before it cascades off. And I do think the questions that were asked, I think you've asked a lot of really good questions here tonight. I was very, very impressed with the questions that you all asked tonight. And yeah, I am concerned about the water flow and how that's going to come up. As far as the construction is concerned, same questions about the concern in the dirt. And I'll introduce a couple other things that I learned about when I moved to my house 27 years ago. My neighbors Marlo and also John DeLizzi over here were also part of a group that when they capped the landfill also met with the town, and there were certain provisions that were put into place that some people don't even know exist. No trucks are allowed on Acorn Hill to go to that transfer station, while school buses, you could only really be
bringing trucks on and up that street when the buses have now passed, so about 9 o'clock, and not after 2:30 in the afternoon, okay? So that means their construction trucks would have to work within that same parameter. And yes, I have actually chased the trucks at 7 o'clock in the morning when kids were getting on the bus, like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. You know it, I know it, and that type of thing. So that was another thing. I also heard when, during the town meeting, there was some discussion about diverting power, which I don't think can happen, to the ball fields. By the way, when the ball fields were approved, they were approved that there would never be lights on those fields, okay? The neighbors requested it. And in actuality, lights don't really belong on the ball fields. You're gonna put lights anywhere, put them on the soccer fields, because the lights, basically in the fall, soccer has more of a problem with lights than baseball
So
does.
you're at about almost 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll do the best I can. But I can tell you the information I'm giving you will be very helpful in terms of what you're considering here. Ball fields. The study that was discussed that has not been done, I know when, a lot of times when they do the polls, the siting council makes them put up the balloon. I think some stuff like that should be done. I believe that these panels will probably be seen by some of the neighbors, I think from Marla's house easily, maybe from mine too. I heard that the abutters were notified. I have not received a notice. I don't know. I'm at 68. I'm pretty damn close to the ball, where this is at, but I have not received a notice. The screening, how tall are you gonna be able to do it? Because you can't go in and get how tall that's gonna need to be. I think that's an issue. If there is an issue with when it gets punctured, what's the cure period for that? Obviously, you got a puncture, that cure period should be very quick. The bond, I think I heard there's a bond in place. Will that bond be called in place during life of the panel sitting there? I'm not sure if I heard that correctly. I thought I heard it maybe, okay. On-site monitoring, ongoing monitoring, how often is that going to be done?
Please try to finish up. The other folks want to speak.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure none of my comments will be there still. Obviously, the concern about the equipment going over the landfill to install, I think that's also an issue. I heard about the swamp mats, but that's generally for traction, I believe. When the applicant was asked, have you ever heard any problems? I'm not sure. I mean, I did some Googling when I was sitting here, and yes, there have been issues in other areas, but you know, that's a hard one to answer. Those were really my key points with it. I appreciate all the questions you asked. And you know, I think that this is a bit of a risky project. I think that more work should have been done by the applicant before they came here, and that the fact that they still have work to do, and to have this just move forward to DEEP and have them hopefully solve the problem or make sure they ask the right questions. I'm not sure that's really the right thing. So thank you for all the work that you do and your diligence, and thank you so much for giving me the time to make the comments that I've made. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
Hi, good evening. My name is Desiree Balbuena, and I'm a resident at 70 Acorn Hill Road, right across the street.
Please sign in.
Can you hear me better?
Sign in. Can you also sign?
sorry.
So we
Sure.
have.
So I'm a resident of 70 Acorn Hill Road, right across the street from where this project is planned. Before coming to Woodbridge, I used to live in New Rochelle with my family in New Rochelle, New York, and I seen firsthand what project like this does to a community. I lived in New Rochelle for 20 years. It's a beautiful town of New York, on the York area of New York. But throughout the time, buildings, solar panels, projects very similar to this destroyed the beautiful town that I used to love, to the point that we have to live with my family. For the period of 1 year, we looked for houses all over Connecticut, looking for something special, and we found them in Woodbridge. a magical place. We saw 75 enclosed houses all over Connecticut looking for that place that we would call home, and we found it in Woodbridge. It's a place like no other I've seen, either in New York or in Connecticut. And it's beautiful because of the people that lives here. It's beautiful for the wildlife, the community that we have. A building like this, a project like this, is gonna change that. And I see it. I seen it firsthand in New York, and I'm so afraid. When I saw the project, I was like, oh no, this cannot happen all over again, because I seen it in New York, and I'm so afraid that it's gonna happen here. Losing the first day that we moved into the house we live now, the first thing I saw was animals crawling and playing in my backyard. I never seen that. If this project continues to happen, we're gonna lose that. We're gonna lose the hawks, the bears coming into our town, our backyards, and our kids are gonna be missing that. So if you, in addition to everything they say, the benefits that they say that this is gonna come to bring to the community, my concern is what we gonna be losing. And $80,000, $100 a year is not gonna be sufficient to pay for what we're gonna be losing. So please take that in consideration, because I'm very concerned that I'm gonna be losing the place that I fell in love with when I moved to Woodbridge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Peter Morgan from 52 Rimmon Road. My wife and I have lived in Woodbridge for about 20 years, raised our kids here. It stayed out of anything to do with town politics up until a couple months ago, and now it seems like every turn there's something that's really getting my attention and getting my concern and getting me to be involved. And that's why I'm here today. I didn't really know much about this until coming here. I just heard about it very recently, and I was really pleased, as other people have said before me, with the quality of the questions and the thoughtfulness that is going into this. So thank you for that. I know, there's a reason I haven't been involved in town politics. It's a lot of work, and so I appreciate that you do that. And I thought while I was listening, well, what would it be like to be in your position? What would I be thinking about? And so these are all just fresh ideas for me. But I really thought about, well, what's the principle, of the, the Zoning Board of Appeals? What do you really think about? And I do think you think about cost and value, right? Because if you're going to change zoning, or you're going to allow something to go out of zone, there has to be a compelling reason to do that, right? Because we have zoning laws for a reason, or principles and guidelines to follow. And so the value really has to outweigh the cost. And I just find myself tonight very much moved by the people speaking before me, the thoughts that I had, listening to the answers to your questions, and just a lot about the process. And so then thinking about the costs, which seem to be very many, it's just very moving to hear about the potential here for real costs to the community. I'm glad people brought up viewscape. That was not one of the questions I think that came from this board, but it's not insignificant, I think, in thinking about cost. And then in thinking about value, Robert did calculations. I did some calculations while I was listening. And I think the retail value of 1 megawatt year of energy around here is at least $1.2 million, if not $1.3 million. And so then you think, well, how do I compare that to some other value? And there's some other way to get that value. And the thing is, I have a lot of friends who have solar panels on their roofs, right? This is not a project that can't be achieved through some other means that doesn't create this. Every resident in Woodbridge, maybe not everybody, but depending on where they live and their house, has that opportunity. And I think the value that individuals get from putting solar on their home is far greater than the value that the town is getting, just financially, from this. So I would ask you to consider that and see whether the value that this project offers really means something to offset these costs when there is another way to achieve the same end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else from the community like to speak? I see an arm, but I don't see anything else. Oh, there we go.
Hi, my name's Andrew Mortensen. I live at 84 Beecher Road. My wife and I bought the property in Halloween of 2023, so I'm fairly new to the area.
I'm sorry to interrupt. What was your name again?
Andrew Mortensen. And I have a fairly large property with a lot of tall, mature trees. So many trees I can't count them, although I'd like to someday. However, since I've moved in, I quite frequently hear cracks, and then I go for a walk in the woods, and there's a new tree that's very tall that's fallen down. If we're going to talk about glare and we're going to talk about screening, I think we should probably talk about an arborist. And saying that it's a heavily forested or heavily wooded area that is providing screening is lovely. However, it doesn't speak to mature trees that fall. And if you want to come in my driveway and look around in the winter and then look around in the summer, these are very mature, tall trees, some of which are conifer, some of which are deciduous. The deciduous trees don't really help that much. And those trees, with the exception of, say, the tulip poplars, are pretty deeply rooted. I have many oaks, maple trees, etc. Again, very, very tall. So that's a concern. And the fact that someone is suggesting that a glare study, or whatever it's called, is not as good as everybody thinks it is. I don't know how good it is. How good do any of you think it is? What does it buy? How much is it going to cost them? And if you're doing engineering, you should do your due diligence. If you don't do your due diligence, you're not really an engineer. An abundance of caution should be tattooed on every engineer when they graduate. Okay? I'm not an engineer. I don't have that tattoo. But somebody should if you're going to hire them for a project. Not literally, of course, figuratively. For instance, would you, in your house, hire a contractor to put a window in? And they don't measure the window, they just put it in. But they tell you, don't worry, if you don't like where I put the window, I can fix it later. Would you trust them to do this, or would you expect them to measure ahead of time, order the correct window, place it where it's supposed to be, and make sure that it doesn't create some additional problems? I don't know, but it sounds like Woodbridge is looking to be a guinea pig on a project that is going to last for 20 years. We're going to be married to this group for 20 years. I understand there's a bond. However, if you are looking to pair up with an industry that doesn't have a huge track record, because solar's new and new technology, and they haven't done the due diligence to find other projects that they can present to you that are more than 20 years old, that have been completely successful, and have also been done on shallow capped projects, very, very similar to ours, then I think we're being guinea pigs, and this is a project that may or may not make sense in the coming decade when we have more information. I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
So is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, so I guess public comment is closed. Oh, did you want us to talk?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry, forgive me.
Good night. My name is Edgar Melo, 78 Acorn Hill Road. I just want to read something. Need for visually complex and unsightly three-phase high voltage overhead transmission line carrying 30,000 plus volts running down a rural residential street as will be required to transmit power from solar array back to the central grid with say high voltage line, requiring substantially increased clearance to the tree's limbs thereby necessitating significant pruning or outright removal of several existing mature trees in the neighborhood along Acorn Hill Road. Expected difficulty satisfying the CTDIP compliance requirement for any future physical activities on this particular landfill site due to the shallow design of the cap, which saved on initial costs, but had acknowledged limitation as we were established during the initial cap design process and include a clear understanding by all involved that site will have far more restriction on any future use than almost any other Cape landfill in the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we can then close that. We're gonna close,
We have a motion.
oh, okay,
So moved.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, so we're closed, now we can have discussion with the group.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Has the, as a new member, has the zoning board of appeals typically approved a variance which changes zones?
By definition.
Yes.
It doesn't
Going
change
from
zone.
a, you know-
It is a variance to the zoning, so it doesn't change zoning.
It's a variance.
Not asking.
So,
Right,
point of
but-
clarification, some folks were saying
Right,
that
but
this
you're
was changing
putting-
zoning, it's not changing zoning.
Yeah,
No.
it's not changing.
It's an exception
But it's a
to.
variance
variance.
to,
To the existing,
Zone A.
which does not change it.
it's not changing it, but it's a variance
It's a
to it.
residential zone.
Does that happen often?
By
That's the
definition,
purpose-
everything
that's the
here
purpose
is.
of
No, no, but I mean, if I wanted to add onto my garage, and
You're within the
zoning said, no, you're too close to
Right.
the road, then you're within the setback. I
Right,
would come to the zoning board of appeals and they'd say, okay, there's a hardship, and we'll give that, you're not changing zone A and making a variance, you're just making a variance within the zone.
correct.
Yes,
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
That one
just a
application.
variance, don't
Just
For
change.
that one,
Just
yeah,
for
for
that
that
one.
one.
Only for the
application.
specific.
Okay. But, all right.
Okay. Where do we begin? Nigel?
Well, I honestly think that the petitioner has done a grand job with presenting this, but I'm also hearing some really good argument from the residents. So not my vote, was about to say vote, but as a construction guy, I think this deserves a wee bit more study, a little bit more consideration on both sides. So my view is I don't think that we're in a position to be able to vote on this, just my personal opinion. I think we need to know more. I think both sides have put up a great presentation, so I think it's worth further study.
Okay,
I
I mean,
I would agree with that. I like the saying, a cart before the horse, what are we doing?
I guess I'm taking a different point of view, which is that if we approve it, then they still have all the other roadblocks or other things that have
Go
to,
through, sure.
that have to be complied with before that it can actually happen. That us giving a green light only allows them to go to DEP
Yep.
and all the other parts of the system that will weigh in on the things that need to be done. And that can then bring in the concerns of the community, like for instance, whether the 18 or 12 inches of topsoil, whatever it's called, are sufficient, and the DEP would then be worried about if that's breached, how does it get breached? So I mean, I personally don't see it that this is the place for the next, to stop it. The only way to go forward is to say, okay, but we're not approving the project per se, but rather
Correct.
Okay, now you can do all the next steps, and if they're approved, then you have a project. If there are any roadblocks along the way because those aren't achieved, then they're not achieved.
But if every other group took that same approach, there'd be no purpose. We have a responsibility here. And if we don't think it's right, we should say no. If we do think it's right, we should say yes. But we can't just pass it along.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for starting with that, Nigel, because I echo a lot of that sentiment on what we've heard. I think in this case, sometimes multiple things can be, true at the same time. So they, so they presented a very solid, case for these things, and the residents, they also made some good points. But throughout Green Sky's presentation, I feel like I've heard some things that they maybe didn't do thoroughly enough. There were some uncertainties, and due diligence was done very well on a lot of things, but on some things not so much. So I feel like I don't have a lot of confidence in voting on this at the moment.
I have a sense that I kind of agree that the information that I would want to know is what the risk is to the cap. That seems to be the critical question, and the downstream potential effect of that. And without the many decades available to know, and projects that are similar to compare, it makes me concerned about granting a variance at this point anyway. But more information around that might help. And that seems to be the biggest and certainly a very reasonable concern.
And then what is our purpose, again, back to what the variance application is? Right, they're asking for a variance to our Zone A regulations. The dump, as we used to call it, was non-conforming before, right? It was put in there before the regulations were drafted. It's a commercial use, technically, in Zone A. And so this would be a continuation of a non-conforming use in a different purpose.
Right.
So, we thank you, Chris, for giving us this information about what happened back in 2019 over on Park Lane, but that's a different situation.
Yeah.
And that was granted. So we have a few questions. Do we bring it back to the zoning board and ask the Planning and Zoning Commission to take a look at the regulations?
Yeah.
Do we table it? I don't feel we should move on at this point.
Okay, any other discussions from the board? Okay, would someone like to make a motion? To vote yea or nay?
Sure. I'll make
Any
a
question?
motion.
Is this the time we both vote yea or nay, or is that the only option, or is there an option to wait for more information from, I guess, for the study? I mean, or is this just like we're voting yes or no now, come back if there's any update? I'm also new, so just a procedural question.
Well, I think, Chris, we can talk about keeping it
So when the
open.
hearing is closed, you can't receive any more information.
Okay.
So, right now, the members have to vote based on
What's
the public
presented.
hearing record, which is the combination of the documents that you received from the applicant, as well as the testimony that they presented, and the testimony that the neighbors presented. So,
Okay.
that's what you gotta act on. No.
The only comment I have is, we live in a world where we do want to give appropriate deference to those who know more than we do, and I'm not a civil engineer, and so I really appreciate this packet. I did take the time to read through it all, and I thought it was very informative. The only thing, and I think most of us are unsure of, is the impact to the very shallow cap, and as someone new to Woodbridge, that historic perspective was very helpful for the original use of the cap and the original deliberations on the shallow cap. So, yeah, I think it's a worthy concern, and I respect the residents and everyone's concern regarding that. That seems to be a big hiccup here for us. So, we can't vote on that. Yeah.
Okay. Any more?
I do have another question, Chris, on point of order. So we did close the public hearing.
Right.
Right.
But
You made
Right.
the motion.
Right.
Chris,
No, I
could we,
know. I'm s- confirming that happened.
could we reopen the public hearing so we could consider this more?
No, it's closed.
You can
Well, I know
vote
it's
to
closed, but can we
reopen
vote,
it the
can
night
we vote
that
to
you
reopen?
close it.
My question.
I'm
But
sorry.
I don't, you can vote to reopen it
To
the night that
reopen
you
it, to
close it.
table it, to keep the public hearing
Mhm.
open.
But then you have to give direction to the applicant about
applicant.
what it is that you're looking for.
Right,
I mean, you have 35 days to close a hearing.
right.
I'm not sure that we can give direction. I'm not sure what direction, what would be enough to satisfy?
It's up to you guys.
No, I know, I'm just thinking out loud. It's like, okay, so what is gained by pushing it off for, like, whatever the correct term is, continuing it, and saying, come back in a month with what? I'm asking.
Well, there were a number of questions that other people have raised, and we could formulate that and state that this is what we want an answer to.
Well, there was the question of how they're gonna get the equipment on top of the cap to build it. That was one issue, that
So they answered that.
there were a few options given that might possibly work, but there was no, oh, this is how we're gonna address that. This is how we would make it work. Say, well, we could do this, this, or this, but we really haven't looked into that yet.
And other questions that were raised here were the safety of the fence, people running after a ball over the fence is one of people testified today.
There was the
Yep.
glare study,
Yep,
which
exactly.
is up for, I guess, debate on whether it's, you know,
Yeah, to
valuable,
information.
you know, I mean, I'm sure some would make the case that it is a valuable,
The power lines running down Acorn Hill, the clearing of trees, things like that. No.
I think we need to bifurcate what this board's responsibility is in terms of the zoning question,
Correct.
right? The variance,
What's the variance?
construction means and methods,
Right.
entirely different thing. That's for down the road for these people to figure out with the town and the building officers and the building officials, and which means me to a certain degree down the road. So I think we need to keep the question to the variance of the zoning.
Right.
Correct.
But the question of the variance still involves what many of the concerns we heard here today. Which
Sure.
is this a risk that we should be taking as a town?
Sure.
And I think we need to consider that. We can't just vote this to move it on for somebody else's problem.
Well, but we're moving on to
We're not.
someone else who has the expertise. It's not, it's not like,
can't
it's
answer
not
those
like we're just kicking the can down the road. It's like,
No.
okay, but it allows people who are expert in those things to make
There's the process to
determinations.
continue.
So it's,
No,
yeah.
but our duty is to decide whether this variance is appropriate or not. And one of the things that we have to do in granting that variance is look at the risk and look at some of the other factors that we just can't answer right now.
Well, I don't agree. I mean, I think if someone comes in and says, I want to build a garage, and I want a variance because it's out of compliance, whatever, that's not our responsibility to tell them how to build a garage. That's the town, building inspectors do that, not us. So to Nigel's point, we don't want to conflate everything into one. We are not the experts on building. So when someone comes in and says they need to build something, okay. The variance doesn't have anything to do with how they build it. They still have to have a building inspector who says, you can't do it that way. So
True,
we're not the be all end all. We're just an allowance to go forward and and get the experts who are involved to do their part. I'm not an expert at any of
But
this.
aren't we're determining if this is the appropriate use.
Right.
That's the question. Based
I mean,
on the
it's a-
information that was given to us, is this the appropriate use?
I mean, it's a
For
parcel
that
of land that's not
Parcel of land.
suitable for much else.
Right.
Is it,
Mhm.
you're not gonna put buildings on it. You know, so how does it benefit the town? I mean, I have to be careful what I'm saying because I'm involved in many discussions about solar and love solar. I've been involved in many construction projects about sustainability in the Green Building Council and LEED certifications, and been there, done that. And I know that the town, the First Selectman's office is very keen on sustainability and solar power and any way that we can use that. But, you know, we represent residents. We represent people, and it doesn't mean it's not only the residents who live on that street, it's the people who drive down that road to dump their stuff at the transfer station, and if they're driving down the road and there's this glare off the hill, it could be an issue. So, you know, I really think that it warrants a little bit more study. That's my opinion.
Can I
Adding on to, I agree with all that, and adding on to that, also, I feel like there could be more consideration given to the teams that are on that field, because it sounds like I'd hate for them to go to play baseball in the spring and then be shocked at what they're seeing there. So, I mean, I don't know.
Okay. So what are our choices here,
So can
Chris?
I'm
sorry,
sorry,
go
can I
ahead.
just ask another question? So table 3.1, right, it's not in there about solar.
This is not a use that's described in any
It's not a
zone
use.
within the town.
Correct, so
And
now
so
hypothetically,
57
say it's
Park
in
Lane
there.
granted a variance for that use.
Correct. Now say it's in there, hypothetically, it's in our regs, and it's in there.
It wouldn't be before you.
Exactly. So the town planning and zoning commission would have to approve the change in the regulations to allow that, correct?
The town, TPZ could consider adding a use of solar farms to their table.
Okay, I'm just,
It depends on the size of the solar farm, because there are 2 solar farms that are proposed in town, which do not come before TPC, because they are more in size, and they just come. They go to the siting council, that's it. You got one on Racebrook, you got one up on Newton.
And they're larger?
They're larger, and they're under total jurisdiction of the Connecticut Siting Council.
I'm just trying to put all context in place. Right, wrong, or indifferent.
Well, we can sit here and get nowhere, so.
Okay.
Who will be voting? Just,
There's 5 full members that
five
are
full members,
seated.
so.
okay.
So I guess the options are at this point, you vote yay or nay, or continue it for a month.
You don't have to act on it tonight. If you want to mull it over, you have 35 days to act on it. So you could come back next month based on the record that you've got now.
Right, based on the record so far, but there'll be no further input from the company, so.
Or anyone.
Right. We would have no more information than we have right now, other
Right.
than sitting at home and thinking about it.
Yeah.
Unless we reopened.
But then you have to tell them what it is that you're looking for.
And we weren't able to receive any additional counsel or any information prior to this meeting, correct?
talk to Hank, and that's something that you guys have to decide to, as a whole. I can't, one person,
Right.
say that that's gonna happen.
But we
So,
could-
if you wanted something weighed in by council, you had a direct question that you wanted to ask him, you could continue your decision but you gotta give him a question.
Right,
Correct.
right. So is that something, do we have a direct question?
Yeah, are we setting our, if you say yay, we need to know our options as far as approving or not approving.
Well,
But
he's
every
not
single
gonna
single
give you-
action of this committee is, it's a variance to what zoning, it's not changing anything. So it's not setting a precedent, it's individual things, so I don't know that we have a question to ask. So if we're not gonna have any more information in 30 days, or 31 days, or 35 days, I think we should bite the bullet and make a decision now of yay or nay. Unless, I'm certainly open to whatever you guys think. But we have no new information.
Right, and the uncertainties are gonna remain.
That's my point.
And the town engineer hasn't looked at this yet.
It's
Well,
not
then-
something that normally gets weighed in on this
On this.
level,
Right.
because
I
it's a
appreciate
use
that.
variance, it's not
I
a
appreciate
site plan review.
I get it. We have to go back to what our purpose is,
Right.
really.
Okay, kids?
Can I who is able to make a motion for a vote as alternates? Do we, we're quiet and just.
You
No,
can't
you
make
can't,
a motion.
you can talk, but you can't.
Right.
can't-
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
So-
I just wanna make sure I'm not holding it up.
But
No,
if somebody
no.
else wants to make a motion to reopen this,
It has to be one of the full
you can,
members.
I can't.
Right,
Right.
but reopening it to do, again, without giving guidance, you're back in the same place. All the same things will still be there if it's reopened. And if you want to get all the engineers on the earth to weigh in and say, this is going to be good, that's going to be good, it's going to take more than 35 days.
No, but we've raised questions here that we could have the petitioner answer and then have an opportunity for the townspeople that have come to respond to. I don't think that's unreasonable.
I think it's unfortunate that it's come to this far, and our decision is based on a specific request. We have concerns about the cap, but that's not our scope of practice.
Right, exactly.
That's not our scope of practice. It's unfortunate that it's come this far, and that question's still there. So hopefully that question will be resolved, and the concerns of the citizens and the residents in that area are addressed.
So there's a world in which, again, I don't have a vote, but let's say it's moved forward, and then somewhere down the line, those experts who are tasked with verifying risk associated with the cap make a determination that it's not worth the risk, that our allowance of the variance does not mean that it has to go on. and
No,
actually-
that was the
Okay.
point that I was
Could be.
making.
Yeah,
Right,
sure.
that's
Okay.
exactly the point I was making. When the experts, we just give them the green, not them, we give the next
Applicants.
step, which then
Next
brings
step.
the experts in who could then say yay or nay.
Gotcha.
You know, and all those kinds of questions can be answered in a more technical fashion to the folks who know this kind of stuff.
So they have to make their decisions based on that information specifically.
Right, that's my point.
Okay.
So by us saying, if for instance we said, sure, go ahead, that doesn't mean it's gonna happen unless all the other things are met, all the other requirements are met all along the way. So, again, just my point of view, which is we're not voting on the technical component, as Cindy's saying, we're voting on whether this use of the land
So we can support
has benefit. But that doesn't mean if we said, yes, have a great time, guys. That doesn't mean that DEP, that the town engineers, whoever, environmental whatevers, are gonna say, not gonna happen. Or that the study says that there's too much glare, or the study says the equipment that you're gonna roll in there is gonna break the cap, and so the discussion's over. So none of those things are what we're approving, if we approve, none of those things are what we're approving here.
Right.
And as Nigel said, we need to separate the technical component from, is this a good use of land which is not otherwise going to be used? Period. And then all the other technical things are up to technical people. And Nigel will be doing that because he's on the other. No, but,
It's hard
anyways.
to do. It is hard to do when you're sitting listening.
Yeah.
You do have to
Right.
become a siloed.
No, exactly.
No, ours is a very narrow
It's a
question.
very narrow question.
Right, and that's, in my view, is it's a very narrow question, and even approval of that narrow question is not a green light to go build this tomorrow. All the other things still need to be taken care of.
Something that I need clarified, did I hear or read somewhere that when this landfill was capped, that at that time it was deemed to not have anything built on it, right? Because of,
Well, even if they did, that was
Right.
30 years ago, they
Right.
could now come back
which
and
I know that's.
DEP can still say,
Right,
yeah, well, that was 30 years ago, and guess what, guys?
yeah.
Or even what we heard about solar panels,
Mhm.
that they're no longer hazardous materials.
Right, gotcha.
Okay, things change.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
what
I'm thinking
happened
out loud.
30 years ago is interesting, but doesn't, to me, is not important.
Gotcha.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve it. Any seconds on that?
I'll say.
Okay. So we now have a second. So let's have a vote. All in favor?
Can we have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We need a reason.
We need a reason?
Yes. When you grant variances, you must always have a reason.
The town doesn't have any reference to solar farms in our regulations, correct?
Right.
So it's not in table 3.1
Right.
reference.
So if it was, it
There's
wouldn't
no
be
other
here.
way to
Right.
move forward with the question about whether this is something that the town could consider even. Is that right? Unless we provide the variance, the town can't move forward with the
Right, that's
plan.
why they're here.
Right, no, I get it. Right, so that's the point. I just restated it.
So that's the hardship. Yes?
Mhm. That's
No.
why I gave you the other permit that you issued, so you could see what that said.
Let's see what they say. All right, well, that's what they said. The board said then, it was a viable use for a site which otherwise would have been difficult site to develop residentially. So that's the answer. That's what they used then. Due to topography of the property. Well, in this case, not topography, but. So that was from 6 years ago, or 7 years ago. Okay, so now we have a hardship. And now we can have a vote. We have a second. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Okay, does not pass. You voted,
Wait, it was 2 to 3.
Right. You have to have four
You have to have
without
four.
variance.
okay. I'm sorry, did you vote
I voted in favor.
in favor? Okay.
So
So
that is-
we have three votes in favor and 2 not.
Yeah, so it doesn't pass.
Right.
Who voted in favor? I'm sorry.
Hank, Nigel,
Well,
and Cal.
And Cal.
Okay.
Okay, thank you all. It was an interesting meeting.
All right. I gave you meeting dates. Did anybody have a chance to look at those?
Yeah.
Consider a change. Because the town doesn't have another meeting, so.
We're on the minutes?
We're on the meeting dates.
Oh, meeting dates.
Were they in this pile, or did you send an email?
Huh?
The meeting dates were in an email though, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So did anybody see anything that needed to get changed?
I did not.
Because we're just asking about it.
Guys,
I'm trying to
we're still working
We're,
on
we're
the
still,
meeting.
right.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
I think I don't know.
You did send it. Like,
I did send it, I just can't remember when I sent it.
Right. All right, so now we have to vote on the minutes of the last meeting.
So is that a concurrence?
Thank you.
Generally, when I do the meeting dates, I'm looking at the big dates like New Year's, Christmas, Thanksgiving, those kinds of things, and making sure we dance around that. But then I look to everybody else to make sure that there's nothing else that's floating out there, a religious holiday or something, where it can be expected that members wouldn't be able to attend, or the public
Right.
most likely wouldn't be able to attend. So we're
Gotcha.
trying to be respectful of that.
Okay. Seems like second Monday
Yeah,
of every.
thank you.
It's typically the second Monday until we get to Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples' Day, and then we move it to
Right,
Tuesday.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the concurrence is that's.
Yes,
Okay,
uh-huh.
Okay, thank you. And you want to keep it at 7?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And in the mail, oh, no, we got minutes.
Right.
Yeah, I would vote to approve the minutes.
So I second it.
All in favor? Okay. All right, so we're done with the minutes, we're done with elections, we're done with this appeal.
And then
Yes.
I gave you the I sent you one, and then I just handed out another one. These come from the Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning Commissions. It's really the best place.
This one, the.
That was the one I mailed you. This is the new one that, did you get one? Otherwise, I'll give you one.
I don't think I did,
You can get one. You got it.
because I looked at this one.
That's the down.
I got another one, so you can have this one.
I passed that one down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There we go.
It's the best place to collect information on court cases and whatnot that are coming down. Sometimes it relates to zoning board of appeals stuff. Sometimes it's just good information for you to have about how to make decisions and what you should or shouldn't include in them and that kind of stuff. I guess real quick, I just want to say, because we've got new members. So, under state statute, new members are required to be trained within the first year that they serve on a board or commission. There should be a really good training opportunity coming up in March. It's through the Connecticut Bar Association.
Okay.
They did it via Zoom last year, and I think quite a few of you did it via Zoom last year.
Yeah.
And it gets all the hours that you need. You always have to have an hour on housing,
Okay.
and then 3 other hours on something.
Yeah.
So it's a nice way to do it. As I say, it's through the Connecticut Bar Association. And you get to do it at home in your PJs and, your coffee, whatever you want.
It worked out very nicely.
And it's a nice, no carbon footprint kind of thing, because, you're just zooming in. And typically they'll issue you a certificate. And so if you can print that out and get it to me, my responsibility is every year at the beginning, January, by March 1st, I'm supposed to tell the Board of Selectmen that you guys are trained or not trained. So in this case, I'm gonna say, I got 3 new members and they're gonna get trained this year.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna, worry about,
Clock is ticking now.
the clock is ticking. But there are some other opportunities. So as stuff comes in, I'll let you know what's out there. and whatnot. If you, for some reason, hear of something, you know, let me know and I'll spread the word. And there is no cost to you. So, you know, if there's a registration fee within the budget for the zoning board of appeals, there is a line item for, training. And so
Thank you.
we pay for that.
And and for the current members, it's a 2-year window,
So once
correct?
you've been trained for the first year, then every 2 years thereafter, if you stick around, you get to do another 4 hours, of which one has to include housing.
Okay.
Because housing is a big
So
thing.
when the housing committee did the Bar Association's land use training, maybe about a month and a half ago.
You had Mark Brantz, and that's online. So that's an hour of training that you can get online.
But
you
if I
can send me
attended
an
a
email
person, if I attended a person, do I get a certificate from them now? Since I didn't ask for it, then it wasn't
No,
relevant.
what you can do is just tell me you attended it, and I'll print out your email and put it in my file. Because we're assuming everybody's telling the truth, Scott's son.
I saw you
Big
there, Lou.
assumption.
So that's my spiel. Oh, and the other thing that I want to offer to you guys is that I can give you, our zoning regulations are online. I can also give you a hard copy if you're more comfortable having a hard copy, because sometimes it's nice to have notes. So if you want that, I've just ordered more binders, because I've been chewing them up a lot lately. And I will gladly make you a copy and get it to you.
I would
Okay?
definitely appreciate it.
So if you want me to do that, just let me know.
I'll get it online.
You'll get it online? Okay,
Thank you.
cool.
I'd appreciate the binder though.
I will get you a hard copy. You want a hard copy?
Yes, please.
Okay, cool.
Okay, then
We'll
we
do
still have
that.
to close, right?
And that will go back to the change, correct, that happened?
Yeah, I'll print out the one we just adopted until next time we change something.
So you'll email us the
It's
link
misspelled.
for
I don't know about
the
you.
Bar Association training?
I haven't gotten it yet,
Okay.
but I know it's coming up in March. So as soon as it comes, I'll let you know.
All right, so did we vote to adjourn?
No, because I was yakking.
You were,
I move that
you
we-
were providing important information.
Did I spell your name wrong?
Yes,
I didn't do that.
it'll cost you an extra letter.
I know.
I move to adjourn.
The C has to come out.
Second.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning?
Yep.
Okay,
Well, I don't-
done.